meets everyone and learns their powers. And yeah, he definitely thinks they're all losers.
Great. Great.
While the commander makes himself a delicious sandwich, Will comes in and tells him that his friends are all sidekicks, and actually, he's a sidekick too. And Steve is not happy.
Washed out!
He thinks Coach Boomer was just peanut butter and jealous, and that's why he assigned Will with the sidekicks, but Will finally confesses that he has no powers.
It's me, okay? I don't have any powers.
He tells his dad that he's fine with having no powers, and he's actually happy to be a sidekick. Later that night, Steve talks with his wife Josie about Will not having powers, and good lord, Josie can get it.
I'd do it.
The next day at lunch, while walking to his seat, Lash trips Will, and his tray hits Warren Peace. Warren gets up in his face, and a fight breaks out. He starts launching fireballs at Will's face, but luckily Will blocks one and dodges the rest. Will sees a fire alarm, so he starts hauling ass to it, but again gets tripped up by Lash, so he crawls under the lunch table while Warren continues to try and smoke him. He keeps throwing them at the side of the table while on top instead of just hopping down and hitting him from the side, but whatever. Warren stops and is like, "Where's your dweeby little friends?" And they come out ready for war. Maybe not. Will isn't about to let his friends get the Freddy Krueger treatment though, so he picks up the table and sends Warren flying into the wall. Kind of reminds me
Peak
of...
video. Hold on. This is a peak video, bro.
when Peter did the same shit to Harry in Spider-Man 3. Goated movie. I don't care what people... say. Warren's not out of the fight yet though, and as he gets up, Will hits this weak ass pose before they continue scrapping. Like, what is this shit? We then cut to Warren getting absolutely launched through a wall while the science dude and Coach Boomer are setting up a two-man. No, this isn't a joke. They were actually doing this. Warren flames up and charges at Will, but Layla throws him if this isn't a joke. They were actually doing this. What is this shit? We then cut to Warren getting absolutely launched through a wall while the science dude and Coach Boomer are setting up a two-man. No, this isn't a joke. They were actually doing this. Warren flames up and charges at Will, but Layla throws him a fire extinguisher and he pops the top off to put Warren down right as the principal rolls up. After detention, Will heads home and accidentally breaks the door on his way in and is greeted by his parents who are not happy that bro is scrapping at school. His dad brings him down to the sanctum for a stern talk, but his dad doesn't actually care. He's just hyped that his son has super strength and gives him a new Xbox. But the moment's ruined when we see that they're still being watched by those two weirdos again. The next day at school, Will is told he's been moved to the hero classes, so he heads over and gets paired up with Gwen, and we find out that she's actually really smart and a technopath. And again, someone is packed up in broad daylight. This movie's insane.
You know, I can totally help you out with all this science stuff.
He's in there. Later that day, Will sits with Gwen's table, and when his friends come to sit, this chick who can duplicate takes up all the seats and tells them that there's no room. So after lunch, Will finds Layla and tells her he's sorry about what happened at lunch, and to make it up to her, he asks if they can go out to a restaurant called the Paper Lantern, and Layla agrees. Will also finds the bullies stuffing Ethan into a locker, so he breaks that up, and he also finds Zach stuffed in one too.
Not so tough when my boys around, are you?
And once they get out, Ethan and Zach tell Lash and Speed that Will's ready to run the fade at any point in time. But instead of scrapping, they make an agreement that during the Save the Citizen, if Will wins, they have to stop bullying them, and if Will loses, they can bully them as much as they want. Bit of a strange deal, but alright. We then cut to the game of Save the Citizen. Lash and Speed pick who they want to face, and they pick Will and Warren. Now, the rules are as follows. There's two teams, heroes and villains. The heroes have 3 minutes to stop the villains and save the citizen from getting lowered into the saw trap. Pretty simple. Speed zips around and knocks both Will and Warren down. Then Lash tries grabbing Warren, but gets his arms burned. Will tries to get to the citizen, but he keeps getting whacked by Speed, and while this happens, Warren is throwing fireballs to try and smoke Lash, but ends up hitting the coach instead. They're not looking too good. Will finally decides to dial in, and he punches the ground, which sends Speed and Lash flying. He's able to tie Lash around a pole, but Speed comes back and starts circling Warren, which makes it to where he can't breathe. But there's only like 20 seconds left before the doll hits the trap, so Will has to make a choice between saving Warren or saving the citizen, but he chooses option 3. He runs over, grabs Speed, sends him into the pole. He then grabs Warren and throws him at the citizen in time to save the day. I should mention, Lash and Speed were like undefeated in this game, so it's kind of a big deal that Will and Warren beat them. Also, I can't believe another student was about to get packed up in this school. Later that night, Will comes home to find Gwen at his crib. Apparently, they were going to work on some science stuff tomorrow, but things came up, so she pulled up today. And Will's cool with it, for obvious reasons. They also invite her to stay for dinner, which she accepts. Unfortunately, Will was supposed to meet Layla at the Paper Lantern for dinner tonight, so Layla's just chilling there, all alone. Apparently Warren works at this place though, so he comes up and has a seat with her. They talk about how Layla is in love with Will, wow, big surprise, and how she should let him know how she feels. I should also mention, even though they just fought, Warren peace, chill dude. Anyways, while this happens, Gwen, Will, and his family are going through his parents' old yearbook, and they come across this chick, Sue Tenney. Apparently she was really strange and disappeared right before graduation. But she also looks oddly familiar. Strange. Later that night, Will walks Gwen home, and she low-key kind of makes him ask her to homecoming, which is odd, but it is possible that she just wants Will to... You know what happened. Gwen's dad comes out, and I'm not joking, this actually happens. He says to Will, "You're not that kid with 6 arms, are you?"
You're not that boy with the 6 arms, are you?
He then tells Will to keep him to
Is that the
himself,
dean?
which is
That
kind
is
of a
the
wild
dean.
line for a kid's movie. We then cut to these dweebs again, and they're talking about how at homecoming, they're going to break out their totally awesome evil plan. They just need one more thing, the pacifier. The next day, while Layla and Will are waiting for the bus, Will apologizes after he's reminded that he missed their date last night, and she's about to tell Will how she feels until Will brings up homecoming.
It's about homecoming. I'm going with Gwen Grayson.
Gwen's low-key salty about this, so she tells Will that she's going to homecoming with Warren Peace, and obviously, Will's not happy about that. Later at lunch, Layla tells Warren about what she told Will, and the gang sits at his table against his wishes, but Warren agrees to take Layla out to homecoming and play along with his new plan to make her jealous. Later that night, Will is studying with Gwen when she gets a call. Apparently, there's a problem with the homecoming decorations, so she asked Will if the committee could come over to his place. She says it'll only be a few people. Right. Will says no because his parents won't be back until late, and he's not supposed to have people over. But Gwen pulls this.
I was just hoping we could spend a little more time together.
And you won't believe it. The few people turns into a massive-ass party at his house. Who would have thought? Will finds Gwen and is like, "Yo, what the f?" But Gwen just tells him to lighten up. Red flags everywhere. She brings Will to a quiet room to get him to chill out, and she's like, "Oh gosh, I sure wish there was somewhere more quiet and secluded so we could be alone." And this motherfucker cracks. He breaks the one rule and brings this dirty down to the secret sanctum.
I swear to God, if you don't her, I'll myself. Good for me.
I love that clip.
While this happens, Layla wanders upon the house, and she heads inside right as Will and Gwen come up from the secret sanctum.
That'd be
You can
edits,
imagine
man.
what they were doing. Gwen sees Layla and looks absolutely disgusted, so she tells Will to grab her a drink, and while he does that, she comes up to Layla and is like, "What the f*** are you doing here? You weren't invited." "Oh, and Will doesn't like you." And she just goes in on Layla. Will comes back right as Layla is leaving, and she's visibly pissed off. So Will's like, "Yo, what did you say to Layla?" And Gwen doesn't beat around the bush. She's like, "I told her the truth. You don't want to date that dirty loser. She can't handle hog like me." Will says, "F*** all that, we're done," and breaks up with her. His parents then pull up and see what's going on and tell everyone to leave. You might think he's going to be in some serious trouble. Nope.
Dad, I swear I didn't plan this.
All right, good enough for me.
Kurt Russell's the man. Will leaves Layla a voicemail telling her to meet him at the Paper Lantern later tonight. But when he gets there, she's a no-show. But don't worry, our boy Warren is working again, and again decides to give some much-needed bro talk. He tells Will how him and Layla are only going to homecoming together to make him jealous, and he tells Will that Layla is and has been in love with him, and she definitely wants that Will special. The next night, or later that night,
Dude, I
know,
fucking love this
everyone
guy's
but
edits,
Will
bro.
pulls
He's
up
so
to the
good at this.
homecoming.
This
Even
guy-
Warren, who's looking
you can tell he
good,
does it himself.
fully feathered, suited and booted. Will's bored, so he starts going through that yearbook again, and when he stumbles upon Sue Tenney, he notices notices she looks oddly familiar. It's Gwen. Sue Tenney is Gwen. How they didn't notice this when they were legit looking at the yearbook with her is wild, but you know, whatever. Now you might be thinking, wasn't this an old yearbook? Sue Tenney graduated with Will's parents. How is she still so young? Don't worry, we'll get to that. Will notices the pacifier is gone and he needs a way to get to Sky High, so he calls the man himself, Ron Wilson. Back at the homecoming, the commander and Jetstream show up as the guest of honor, and while Gwen is giving her little speech, she suits up like a Power Ranger and reveals she's actually Royal Pain. The goblin dude comes out and brings her the pacifier, and she starts blasting. But it doesn't send people to the Shadow Realm. It turns them into babies. She starts laying the beamer down on everyone she can, and no one can escape because the duplicating chick and the bullies close the gates over the exits. But Warren finds a vent and opens it so our main gang can escape. And while they do this, Will pulls up thanks to Ron Wilson. It's a little dark in the vents, but fear not, my boy Zach finally comes in clutch. They get out and meet Will, and we get a little motivational speech about working together to save the day, and Layla and Will make up. Cheers all around. Now let's lock back in because these dudes are back. Will heads out to stop Royal Pain while the rest of the gang holds off the bullies. Here's what happens. Ethan gets chased into a stall, and he makes Lash think that he dipped out through the toilet. But as he's looking, Ethan drops down and stuffs his head into the toilet. He might have drowned. I don't know. Warren was getting worked by Speed, but luckily Ethan turns into goo as Speed is running and he slips, so Warren takes the chance to send him through a wall with a fireball. Layla gets chased by the duplicating chick and finally busts her poison ivy powers out and wraps them all up. But this chick breaks and says that Royal Pain plans to disable the anti-gravity, so Sky High falls to the ground while everyone's on it. While this happens, Will finds Gwen, and we find out that when the commander and Jetstream beat her all those years ago, she wasn't actually packed up. The pacifier just turned her into a baby, and she was raised by the goblin dude. Gwen and Will start scrapping, and they smash through a wall and into the homecoming area. Will dives at her, then throws her into next week. He then picks her up and starts giving her the Hulk versus Loki treatment before launching her again. She's able to land a nice straight to the lips, which sends Will flying. And while they fight, the others map out how to get to the anti-gravity room to stop Sky High from falling to the ground. Magenta shapeshifts into a guinea pig and goes through a little vent to get to the generator. Will's still holding it down for a minute, but right before he finishes the job, Layla and Warren come in so Royal Pain is able to launch him through the window and he falls to his demise. Or so we thought. He flies up after finding out he has his mom's powers too. He snatches up Gwen, throws her into the ground, and gives her one good juicer to the lips to finally put her out of commission. I guess Gwen's plan was also to take some of the babies, but as the wrong turn dude is doing that, the GOAT himself shows up to put a stop to it. Ron motherfucking Wilson. Magenta finds the generator and starts chewing the wire, but not before the school starts plummeting towards the ground. Will flies up onto the school to try to stop it, but after like 5 seconds, he's just along for the ride. But luckily, Magenta is able to chew through the wire right on time, and Will stops it from smacking a house. The day isn't saved yet though. There's like 30 adults that are now babies, but luckily the science teacher is like normal still. I don't really know. He's able to reconfigure the pacifier and change everyone back into normal. Will and his parents make up. The commander congratulates the sidekicks for kicking ass and saving the day, and they all party to celebrate. The movie ends with Warren dancing with the ice girl that we saw earlier in the movie. Will gets with Layla, and Royal Pain and the bad guys are thrown behind bars. And yeah, that's Sky High. Haven't watched it in forever, so I had to get a little nostalgia running through my veins, you know. Let me know your thoughts on Sky High. Also, let me know what videos you guys want to see next. So that's all we got for you guys today, so I'll see you in the next one. Alright, after watching the Boys show finale, I decided it's time to binge read the entire Boys comics because I hadn't read them yet. It was alright, not the best, but definitely not as bad as people were saying it was. But the ending in the comics is significantly more wild and a bigger scale, so I wanted to talk about it and also point out what it does better or worse than the show. So yeah, let's get into this. Without getting into like excruciating detail, essentially Homelander is finally like, fuck this, I'm the Homelander, I can do whatever I want. So over the course of many months, he begins to cook up a plan with the other Supes to take over the government. And eventually, he finally goes through with it. He has a group of Supes fly over to Washington, D.C. to begin taking over. While this is happening,
But just because it's not like plot, you're like, nothing happened. I'm like, nothing happened? What? Like the craziest, biggest moves happened. It just wasn't someone like shooting someone else and going pew pew pew. And if that's what you want, you're just watching the wrong show.
Okay, I had to service 14 main characters and crossover a bunch of assholes from the Avenging Squad prequel.
Character detail. We have something like 14 characters and we have to, maybe 15. I owe it to all of them, in that television is the character business. I owe it to all of them to...
I'm going to Harry Potter World in Orlando. Who's with me?
Or that you're like the chosen one and have Homelander level strength or some shit?
Well, reports of my awesomeness have been greatly exaggerated.
Flesh them out and humanize them and end their stories.
You know, Clara used to say the craziest shit. That I was the strongest soup alive. I'm gonna head down to Bogota, but she was wrong. You're too weird. She hadn't met you yet. And you're no god. You're a fucking disappointment. No angel came to you. You had a wet dream about some chick with big juicy tits. If that makes you a god, then I'm a fucking god every night.
I owe it to all of them, in that television is the character business. I owe it to all of them to flesh them out and humanize them and end their stories. But apparently, like, just because it's not plot.
This is the biggest lie that Eric Kripke, showrunner of The Boys, has been trying to sell us to justify the mediocre writing of his show. Whenever the show sinks into repetition, dead-end storylines, and actual structure based on filler story beats, or hollow expository sentimentality dressed up as deep writing or character work, yet still manages to make its major resolutions feel forced, foolish, and anticlimactic. The fact that he believes this lie reveals him as a genuinely poor storyteller, who believes his executions are better than they him as a genuinely poor storyteller, who believes his executions are better than they actually are. The reality is that, yes, these criticized episodes are filler in the purest sense of the word, which is precisely why the finale still sucks despite 8 full episodes building toward it. And we are going to demonstrate it. Roughly 3 seasons ago, it stopped being a character-driven story, one with an intelligent, critically minded narrative of characters against a system, where the pessimism carried meaning. Once a great satire and warning on modern idealization in media that became increasingly relevant, it works hard to create that illusion. It invests screen time making you believe that the motivations, character development, backstory, psychology, and emotions driving these people on screen actually matter. But the truth is, they don't. They are superficialities delivered through monologues with no real humanity behind them, most of the time with no payoff. Since the season 3 finale, when the story was prevented from reaching its logical character-driven conclusion because the show had to continue and it wasn't time for the climax yet, The Boys placed plot far above character, betraying them, and the show has operated that way ever since, one where the screenplay does the exact opposite of what Kripke preaches. It disrespects the characters, their motivations, their consequences, and the natural momentum those motivations should bring to the story's progression. Characters act according to the writer's pen and the story's obvious pacing needs, arbitrarily, not as the characters themselves should act, and that is bad writing if, as Kripke claims, you care so much about your characters. No character is moving in a concrete and compelling direction or serving a narrative function. That's why they shift in nature and personality from episode to episode. They are puppets of something larger, a poorly fleshed plot. And the only characters who have had defined paths or roles to fulfill for the past 3 seasons are being artificially held back, so they only fulfill them when the writers need them to. That is, in the finale. What Kripke says here:
none of the things that happen in the last few episodes will matter if you don't flesh out the characters.
Is a complete fallacy. That road was built 3 seasons ago. The Boys' main premise is simple, one that has, in fact, grown simpler with each passing season. There is a time bomb, and that time bomb must be stopped before it goes off.
First, I'll take out the nerve centers. White House, Pentagon.
then any domestic defense capabilities, and then critical infrastructure.
In the journey to stop it, the morality of its protagonist is questioned. Does the end justify the means, or does it merely turn us into mirrors of our enemies, slaves to our own desires, trapped in repeating cycles? It's a dramatic question and a tension-building device that peaked in Season 3 and has been stalled ever since. The bomb never went off, the characters never locked in a path, the thematic anxieties haunting these characters were abandoned, and now, only now, are they being recovered. 2 full seasons later, literally retreating the same ground left at that first narrative climax. Everything in between has been noise. What Kripke misreads as character development or dramatic setup, they are cheap tricks. These are episodes that employ narrative stalling tactics to delay major turning points, in which the show artificially trips itself up, manufacturing speed bumps, forced to undo its own naturally built screenplay solutions, developed across the series and its spin-offs, because otherwise the writers couldn't conceive of an 8-episode season, which makes the lie even more transparent. The filler doesn't enrich the narrative, it paralyzes and dilutes it. Losing the virus is an artificial plot break. The B1 is an artificial MacGuffin and plot break. Starlight's Guild this past year is an artificial plot break. Soldier Boy itself is an artificial plot break. Losing contact with Stan Edgar as an ally is an artificial plot break. Sage rattled by her own dumb mistake, and the dumb mistake itself is an artificial plot break. The Gen V kids being rendered useless all season is an artificial plot break. It only knows how to introduce problems that function as safety nets, micro-conflicts designed to stall the inevitable. That is why, for a long time now, this has not been a thrilling story. That is why it is frustrating. The audience is right. The damage doesn't stop at cadence and pacing. The season is retroactively harmful to the series as a whole. Our journey as viewers is rendered worthless because the show's final resolutions were improvised rather than earned, and they didn't even need to do that because they already had everything they needed. Therefore, the results, however predictable, anticipated, or long promised they may have been, end up being deeply unsatisfying, rushed, and anticlimactic. The final fight, the death of Homelander, Butcher's anti-hero arc, the things we waited years for do happen. Yes, but hurried, tonally off, motivated and resolved for all the wrong reasons. Even if they are correct on paper, you feel nothing watching them. Because this is a script of puppets, not of characters with enough depth to make their tragedy feel real. Sure, the acting is good and the resolution is what we want to see, but for real catharsis, execution matters far more than outcome. And all of this is without yet mentioning the insult, the sheer audacity of sabotaging the main narrative to service spin-offs that don't even exist yet, turning Soldier Boy, a main character, into a launchpad for bot rising, planting seeds in a conclusionless finale for a spin-off that now no one will care about, sabotaging the significance of Gen V as a crossover that was always built to collide with The Boys. But since they wanted a 3rd season, now cancelled, it was simply left as a wasted shot. And with this audacity, Eric Kripke comes to tell us that this is character-driven television, and that's why it deserves time to breathe like a fine wine? When he destroyed the pacing, impact, and natural flow of his own story in order to serve the very consumerist corporatism his show spent years mocking.
Head around, because I'm getting a lot of online dissatisfaction, to put it politely. And I'm like, what are you expecting?
Rage is not what makes you strong. In a few weeks, you're gonna somehow do what it took the Russians over a decade?
Yeah, because unlike the Ivans, we got us a living, breathing supercomputer.
Y'all are dumb as fucking shit. Love is a logic error. Love made me miscalculate that a disfigured Nazi cub stump could actually bring Homelander and Soldier Boy together.
And another thing, I gave you the V1 because that's what she would have wanted.
And I'm like, what are you expecting? Are you expecting like a huge battle scene every episode with like no one? I can't afford that, and two, like it would be so empty and dull, and it would just be about shapes moving without having any import.
Mm.